Okay, I'm going to call the Bucyrus City Joint Regular Committee meeting for Thursday, September 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Members present, myself, Mark McKeever, Kevin Myers, James Mee, Bruce Truca, and Lisa Alsept. Aaron Sherrick and Doug Fote currently are not here. Bucyrus City Joint Regular Committee meeting was called to order by myself at 6 p.m. Public participation.
Mr. Chairman, we received a phone call that Doug Fote was running late.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, if there's no public participation, order of committee business. A, Plating Committee, I'm meeting at 6:01 p.m. Zoning reclassification. Landon, hand it to you.
Thank you, sir. Landon Hill, I'm the zoning administrator. I don't know which one you had first on the agenda. I was treating them as the same, but we can kind of address them at the same time.
Okay.
What we're looking at for a reclassification is the county garage engineer office and the county fairgrounds. What spurred me looking into this was the fairground is looking to put up like a new administration activity building, and the county garage is looking to put up a new salt bin. The zoning of the area, and I think you guys should have the presentations in front of you, both are currently zoned R3 residential, and obviously that doesn't necessarily fit with the current use and activity of the properties. So what I was intending to do was change the zoning designation to more suit the uses that have been there, you know, dating back to however long they've been in operation there. What it would look like would be to pick up the general industrial district, which is on the west side of Highland, extend that to the east to pick up the county garage area and the engineer's office area, and then change the fairgrounds from R3 to what is the special use district. And there's a little bit more to that I will get to. You should have the development standards for the general industrial and LIC zoning districts in there. If you read through there at your leisure, you'll see that basically fits pretty well with exactly how the county garage operates. It really should be a general industrial district. So that has all those requirements in there. And then the special use zoning district, which would be for the fairgrounds, is where it gets a little bit more interesting, and Rob and I have had some conversations about this. But you see the permitted uses in the SU district. They include recreational, which includes private parks, playgrounds, similar open space facilities, and outdoor entertainment, which includes amphitheater, stadiums, racetracks, etc. So I think that kind of fits with what the activity is for the fairgrounds. They have a little bit different, that zoning designation has a little bit different development standards than what you typically see laid out in our zoning code. You'll see that where the minimum side and rear yard setbacks are designated as 75 feet. The front yard setback is not less than any adjacent zoning district, so it would come out to be 20 feet. But really what you're looking at with an SU district is typically they're implemented at a time when the development takes place. So with a condominium development or a PUD, planned unit development, that's when these designations typically go in place. This would be retroactively placing that over top of an existing development. So there's a little bit of kind of wiggle room we need to put in there, because a part of that is compliance with the development plan that they submit at the time of the development. So what I would like to see done is some type of retroactive development plan just to simply allow them to continue with the current uses, with uses that are in line with the fair and the associated activities that take place there. And there is a portion of that that states that city council can specify appropriate conditions and safeguards in this SU district. And a portion of that could also be consideration given to the fact that the fairgrounds abuts directly to the municipal limit, but the fairgrounds continues outside of the city limits. So if it would be, I think it would be more fair to the county that if we could potentially put something in there to waive the rear yard setback of that, since they own the property on the other side and it's outside the city limits. Let them more freely develop the portion on the eastern boundary of the city, because it's not going to affect anybody negatively. So as clear as that was, it's a high level look at it. We'll go to public hearing if the plating committee agrees to it. But is there any general questions about those changes? Yeah.
I'm assuming that you've already reached out to the Fair Board and the county commissioners regarding this?
I've talked to the commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know for certain that the Fair Board is going to erect a new building?
That's what I've been told.
Okay. And it's going to be in the front half?
I
Is that
believe
what spurred this? Is that it's going to be in the front half?
it'll be in the city limits portion of it, yes. Yeah. I believe their intention is to demolish an existing structure and replace it with a larger, more updated structure.
Which one?
4-H food stand area, they're gonna demolish that building there.
It started because we had a tornado siren on the building, and they reached out to us to see what we could do to relocate it if they did demolish that. And I guess kind of regardless of that fact, it would be proactive to do so to allow them to easier develop it for future projects if there are any, is kind of the way I was looking at it.
Is this something that is happening to a lot of older established fairgrounds that are within city limits? So what I'm thinking of is you're asking them to come up with a plan, a retroactive plan, but has it already been done that they can just
Well,
not reinvent the wheel and
and I'm not even saying that we would ask them to create that. I think we could kind of create that based on, like I said, the current activities associated with the fair, associated with the other things that they do there, to say, development within those limits. And those are laid out in the SU code as well, that you can have the administrative buildings, those types of things. Administrative maintenance structures, parking areas, clubhouses, those things are all permitted uses in the SU district.
Okay, well, when I was commissioner, there was the idea of kicking around of making it a privatized fair. So how would that affect? I mean, not that
I
it's going
don't-
to happen, the
I don't
current
see
fair
that it
board
would,
has been
I
running
don't
it
see that
for
there would be an issue there
100
because
years.
private parks and similar facilities are also a permitted use there. I don't see that it would be an issue.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, I just think it's great.
No, I read it already and went through it, but here again, Wayne, good job being proactive.
Okay. Well, I need a motion from the committee if you want to put this to a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Landon, what time frame do you want to do this?
Well, we have to have the 30 days.
Right, notice.
Built in to provide notice. You tell me, as long as I got enough notice, I can get a babysitter, so.
If we put it out tomorrow,
You may want to give a little bit of time for Rebecca to prepare the appropriate
let's say-
notification.
let's say Tuesday of next week. That gives 3 business days. So 28 days is the 5th, so it'd be after the 7th would be 30 days of October. And that, of course, is our committee meeting. So we can do it the next week, like the 11th, the 12th.
Probably should go with the 12th.
Sorry,
Go with the 12th.
the 12th? That look good for you, Jim?
Yeah.
And 6 o'clock?
Usually the time.
Okay, we'll set it for the 12th of October at 6 o'clock here at council chambers. Okay. All right, thank you, Landon.
I'm not going to go far.
No, you're not going far. Go on with the next one you have, the ordinance modification.
Okay, so the next amendment you have in front of you is in relation to the discontinuance ordinance that is a portion of our nonconformity clause in our zoning ordinances. Specifically, the discontinuance ordinance states that a nonconforming use which has been abandoned shall not thereafter be returned to a nonconforming use, and it's considered abandoned whenever it has been voluntarily discontinued for a period of 2 years or greater, or it's been replaced by a conforming use. The subject property that brought this to my attention is the former CNC Hair Designs down here on South Sandusky and is it Wallace? Yeah. So that obviously had a commercial use dating back to its time when zoning wasn't enacted, so it was legally non-conforming, being grandfathered in. That has been vacant for at least a period of 5 years, so it has fallen into this discontinuance in which the commercial use is no longer permitted because it's in a residential zoning district. So consequently, the circumstances dictate that absent of an amendment to the zoning code or to the zoning map, it really can't be returned to a commercial use. It was the property owner's intention to do so. In this specific case, I believe they want to put a chiropractor's office in there. But we really have no mechanism to allow for it. The Board of Zoning Appeals cannot offer them any relief because they cannot, under any circumstance, grant an appeal or a variance that would allow for a non-permissible use to be permitted. And in the residential zoning district, that commercial use is not permitted. So you should see there the location there in the R2 zoning district. Basically what that gave them for options for compliance was to try and a zoning reclassification to pick up the neighborhood business district, which extends to the gas station on the corner of Southern and Marion Road. That would pick up several residential properties and may not be the ideal thing for the neighbors in that area. The second would be an amendment to add such a use to the residential zoning district, which is probably a slippery slope. So after discussions with Rob, we felt the best option was to modify that discontinuance ordinance to accommodate some kind of mechanism to allow for a non-conforming structure which has fallen into discontinuance to return to that non-conforming status. And what that looks like has not been fully fleshed out to this point. We would be looking for the input from you guys. Kind of what we thought about was an application process that is similar to what we're going through with a zoning change or with an amendment, to which, you go through planning commission, you go to plating committee, you go to public hearing, and ultimately city council would issue a resolution or whatever to permit them to go back to a non-conforming status. I think it's important to have, more oversight than just a simply Board of Zoning Appeals decision based on the effect that it could have on a neighboring neighborhood, neighboring property owners. Give a little bit more opportunities for input, feedback, et cetera. So the things that are important, that I think would be important in that process in making these determinations, obviously the characteristics of the adjacent properties in the neighborhood, the feedback from neighboring property owners, the commercial history of the property, what type of non-conforming use was it, how much more intrusive would a change in use to a different non-conforming use be, the specific nature of what use they're requesting, and the impact on the general welfare of the adjacent property owners, ranging from anything from, do they have adequate parking? What type of vehicle access, traffic flow, impacts would it have? Hours of operation, additional signage, all things that should be considered if this is entertained, to make sure that we still maintain some type of a residential neighborhood, integrity to those characteristics. So I'm open to feedback, and with Rob probably not being here through the end of how long this process will take, I'd be open to feedback onto what you want that process to look like, but I do see it mirroring a zoning amendment type process. And now, that does mean that versus a BZA determination, you're looking at a month. With this process, 4 to 6 months, depending on how the timelines fall with meetings and et cetera. But again, that gives us the opportunity to maintain some additional oversight and make sure that we're not willy-nilly putting these non-conforming uses into the residential districts.
I fully agree with what you have said. That gives the neighborhood a say in what's coming into their neighborhood, so.
Quick question, Rob.
Yes.
There's other properties that this would be of a use for as well. And I want to, like, the drive-through that sits on Sandusky Street across from Taco Bell, that's a non-conforming use.
Yeah, that's another one. I think there's going to be one coming up on the north end of town fairly soon. It happens from time to time.
The gas station's another good example right here.
Yeah.
They haven't fallen into that discontinuance period yet. I issued the prospective buyer of that a letter notifying them as to when the utilities were shut off, and which is typically what we use as kind of the date to justify when discontinuance, the clock starts.
Right.
But that's another example, because they would only be able to pick up the downtown business district, which doesn't allow for gas stations. So there are some examples. The old Hebco building is an example, but they could likely take care of it through a zoning reclassification because there is an industrial district right across the street. But what I kind of look at this as is, we enacted this zoning code 20 years ago, this zoning map 20 years ago over a city that has been here for 200 years now, and it's growing pains of putting in these types of things into action, so.
Okay. Jim, you have any questions? So what do you recommend?
Well, Rob, how fully fleshed out does this have to be to go to public hearing? Can we go to public hearing with a general idea of it, or do we have to have legislation?
What I would recommend is if the committee asks Landon and I to put a proposed draft piece of legislation together for you to review it, and then at the next meeting, you can determine that, this looks good, tweak this or that, and then throw that out to a public meeting.
Sounds like a good idea.
We'll move with that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And at which point we would have to schedule that same process, the public hearing, for this as well, but obviously once we have the details kind of more.
One question, this was a residential area, the drive-through, is that in a business?
Actually, I believe that's in neighborhood business.
It is.
Yeah, it's in the
Oh,
That's a
neighborhood
neighborhood
district.
That's
business
correct.
district. That's why it was a non-conforming use when it was open as a drive-through, and now that it's been closed as long as it has, you technically, if you bought that property today, could not open a drive-through there tomorrow.
There is some language in the neighborhood business district that allows for drive-throughs. I mean, obviously, you look around in this area in the neighborhood business district, there's drive-throughs everywhere. Conditional use for retail sales and similar drive-throughs. So if someone were to want to do that, I believe it would be as simple as going to the BZA. It wouldn't necessarily require this type of action.
I got a question. Totally different area, totally somewhat on the same lineup. Is there anything special that we had to do for the Clark Station property? It became non-conforming, and then we finally got it torn down and eliminated and everything. And so what's that area designated? At one time, it was going to be a city park.
I don't know what I'd have to check on what the
I
zoning is
think it's
there, but there's
R3, I'm
no-
not sure.
It's R3 in that
Yeah, okay.
area, so that falls right in there then?
Well, yes, yeah, public parks would be a permitted use there. I believe we've accepted that property from the land bank following their,
We have, it's been remediated, tanks were all
Remediation.
pulled out, so it's, it's just a small irregular shaped lot, so it's not, you put it out.
Accepted it as a pocket lot.
Yeah, we could put it out to bid or something, but,
So it's the Brownfield grants that paid for that, wasn't it?
yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, we don't have to do anything then. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I mean, depends on what the ultimate end use of it is,
okay.
yeah.
The zoning he's talking about, Brock, is, it falls back to residential. Does that mean that somebody could have started like renting it out as an apartment?
Theoretically, there are portions of our code related to the modification of existing structures to accommodate multifamily uses. There's fire code concerns and fire separation concerns that have to be met.
I'm just talking single-family apartment, not multi.
Yeah, probably theoretically, but they didn't have interest in that.
So technically, if there's a residential building that's in a zoning, or if there's a commercial building that's in residential and it falls out of discontinuance, somebody could start living in it, and we really have no way to stop them because they say, well, it's residential, you're saying it's residential.
Probably so.
So like that old chicken thing that burned up over there, that somebody was living in, really, they were actually legally living there because it was residential.
I can't speak to the specifics on that, but
The issue of certificates of occupancy has been something that we've brought up a number of times, so that we know that there are an occupied structure.
Okay. All right, well, we will wait at the next meeting for this. We'll proceed. Okay. Thank you, Landon.
So we're
Yep,
gonna
thank
go
you.
ahead with that.
They're gonna draw up a legislation and we're gonna look at it next meeting
Okay.
and then we can proceed from there.
Good.
Okay. I believe this is for you, street reclaimment.
Yes.
You and Jeff Dunn.
Yes, we have Zach Helm here from Pavement Technology, and he's going to kind of give you a slideshow of what his company does. And I think it'd be a great benefit to the city and savings and helping our streets last longer, but I'll turn it over to Zach, and I can hand you out the paperwork, how we'll be able to pay for it, or do you want me to wait until finance for that?
You can hand it out, but we can talk about it in finance.
Okay, well, I'll let Zach.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Would it be appropriate if I just go over here to the microphone? Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Zach Helm. I work for a company called Pavement Technology. I'll just be 5 minutes. We're out of Westlake, Ohio. Been in business since the 70s. My background is preventative maintenance. I've been in it since I was 9 years old, going to with my dad to committee meetings like this and council meetings. So I remember actually being a young kid. My dad would take me to these at night. So not a lot has changed. But this product has been around for a while. You guys have some documentation hopefully in front of you. What I want to get through is why to use this, what the return is for you guys, because you guys are spending money on roadways, you have to see the return on investment. That's important to the city and why we're spending maybe some extra dollars on preventative maintenance. And so you'll see also a list of communities, that's just some who use this. There's a lot more, but you are not a guinea pig, and that's what I'm trying to prove with this. And there's a lot of communities that are using that, so that should give council some calm as well. And there's a lot of proof here as well. And we have some areas that aren't too far away. If you guys ever wanted to visit some treated versus untreated areas, you could visit as well. So this is called Reclamite. Reclamite is an asphalt rejuvenator and sealer designed to extend pavement life. Very simply, we maintain our cars, we maintain our bodies, our teeth. We look at roadways as an asset that we have to maintain as well. In Ohio, it used to be worst first mentality. When the roads get bad, we mill them up, we pave them, and we start over. There is a huge trend here in the state of Ohio, and you'll notice a lot of cities are now dedicating about 20% of their funds right now to preventative maintenance to actually take care of some of their good roads, because they're finding if you can stretch the dollars, that's really more cognizant of taxpayer money. So this product right here is, I don't want to say it's not a lot of money, it's one of the most cost-effective preventative maintenance solutions on the market right now, and we'll show you some of those life cycles, but it's pink in color. It goes on roadways typically that are 3 years and less. This is not a topical seal like you'll seal coat a driveway, a black tar seal. It's not like that. This penetrates the roadway. Once it goes into the road, you really don't see it much. So I want to give you guys an example of kind of how this works. This is kind of the benefits of it. It will seal out the water. That's the main thing. It's also going to delay aging. And one of the best examples I can use about Reclamite, I have a 4-year-old son. He opens up a granola bar. He breaks it in half. You guys know what happens, right? If you have grandchildren or kids, it falls all over the place, right? That granola bar, it shatters. We try to make the road more like a Rice Krispie treat. Keep that marshmallow more flexible in the pavement. We want that to be a little bit more flexible and not brittle, right? So we want to make the road more of like a Rice Krispie treat versus a hard granola bar that ravels and all the granola goes, or your rock in this case. So that's what Reclamite is designed to do. It's designed to delay aging. We're trying to improve the cement in the asphalt. We're not going to improve the rock. We'll improve the cement in the asphalt. This is what ages with weather and time, is that asphalt cement. And so that's what we're trying to improve with the Reclamite itself. This is Bruce Lane. This is actually in the city of Bucyrus. I do a lot of pavement management as well. I drive cities. I've got over 81 different communities throughout the state of Ohio. I like to take pictures of what we're talking about. There's nothing wrong with the paving that happened here. The contractor wasn't poor. The city hasn't done anything wrong. This right here is just typical of an asphalt pavement. It ages over time. What do you guys notice? You have trees here, right? Where the trees overlay, you'll see right here, you'll get a lot of potholing. You'll see that quite a bit where we have canopy. But you guys know you can't tear trees down, because if you do, what happens, the community is going to come in here in a council meeting and say, why'd you tear my tree down? All right, so we have to protect the asphalt quite a bit. So this is an example of what we're trying to prevent here on Bruce Lane. We apply Reclamite early in the life cycle. This is the cost of general treatments as the road gets worse. And what do you notice as you get further down the pavement, you have to spend more money. We are trying to extend the life so we're not having to go all the way down a sharp curve. We want to extend it out. So that's why we use Reclamite. It's very inexpensive, and I'll kind of go over a video for you. This is what to expect. City of Columbus, where I live, they put it on brand new streets. As soon as the road is paved, they spray it right away. This is a good example. We don't have to do brand new roads, but 3 years and less is general. This is the material going down. Goes really fast, looks like a tack operation. City residential street right here. This is it going into the asphalt about 15 to 20 minutes later. Traffic is back on within 30 minutes. And then we will put a light sand on the roadway. That's just to soak up any excess and and for traction. And then the next day we take a broom and scoop up all the sand. That is it. That is the process from start to finish. It's a very quick operation. And give you guys an example here. This is a pavement that's dry and oxidized after 1 year. This is what it looks like 2 days later after spraying. This is actually in Oberlin, Ohio. And this is some examples right here. This is in the city of Springboro after 9 years. We have a lot of treated and untreated areas we can take you to show you guys the examples of why this extends pavement life. This is how Reclamite sells itself, is basically a lot of the tests we have around the area. This is in Sunbury, Ohio, in Berlin Township. This is a 10-year-old road. We sprayed the right-hand side. We did not spray the left-hand side. In fact, I've asked Landon, but because of time, we couldn't get out there. But this is about 35 minutes away from you guys. You guys can come down and actually visit this section of roadway, too, to show the effectiveness of it. This is actually in Mansfield, not too far from you. I wanted to take Landon in the focus. This is just after 4 months. We treated the right-hand lane, not the left-hand lane. Notice after a rain what happens to the treated area. The moisture is completely wicked off the road. You can see the sealing capability after a rain. That's just after a few months. So again, we use these quite a bit. This is Athens, Ohio. You can see the close-up of what we're doing, how tight the treated area is versus the untreated just after a year. So this is why we're doing the Reclamite overall. And just a couple more examples. This right here is a 3-year-old roadway, and I took a picture of it actually 11 years later from the opposite direction, same roadway, so you can see some difference. So this is why we are doing the Reclamite. Most cities who use this, it's a program, meaning we don't have one-off projects typically with cities. They say, okay, whatever we pave in 2021 is going to get sprayed in 2022. It's part of the program. What gets paved in 2022 is going to get rejuvenated in 2023. For this to be successful for the city, people have to adopt the programming and put it into the right pavement at the right time. And this is how most cities are using it within the first couple of years of the pavement's life cycle. So that's pretty much it, what Reclamite is designed to do. Are there any questions, guys, expectations? Probably the downside of, if people ask me, what is the downside of Reclamite? It does dull the striping a little bit for the first month. That will go away after a month. So you'll see some dulling if we have to spray on top of the striping a little bit. But yes, sir.
If anybody has to do any repairs for water line ruptures or anything like that, and that section has to get pulled up and then repaved again.
Yeah.
How do we take care of, I guess?
The patches.
Yes.
So that's a good example. We do have hand wands. So let's say you have some patches in the areas you want us to hit. While we're in the area, we'll take our hand wand and just go ahead and coat those. But it does happen, you guys know, as you pave a roadway, all of a sudden there's utility cuts. It drives a lot of people nuts, right? It's like, I just paved that, right? So, but it's hard for us to mow out and just hit those little patches. But if we're in the area and you've got some patchwork, we'll go ahead and hit it for you. So, yes, sir.
Is there a certain standard crack that you can? I mean, is there like, I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, good example. Yeah, so we typically are not spraying this on roadways that have a lot of cracking. We get to the roadway before the cracks. We're not going to seal existing crack seal like a band of crack seal would. We're trying to delay that crack beforehand. So if you have an existing crack, it's fine, the material will get in there, but it will not seal that existing crack. We're trying to get to it beforehand. So
That's why you would want to do it the year later.
a year later,
So you don't have those.
yes, or same year.
Worst case scenario, you don't, like I saw in some of the pictures there, you sprayed over top of already sealed.
Yes, we do that quite a bit.
Okay.
Sometimes year 3, if we shoot a Reclamite, there will be some crack seal already on the pavement. That is fine to go right on top of. Absolutely. General life is about 4 to 5 years. Just to give you guys some examples, these are some costs about what things cost in the market. It changes based on, but you can see the amount of dollars you're spending for the amount of life you get. We look at life cycle cost. You're spending about 8 to 10% of what it costs you to overlay, but we get about 30% more life with the Reclamite. And I don't know if you guys have 401ks. If I could get 30% more life with an 8% investment, I'm doing that all day, right? So that's the purpose of this. That's your return as the city, why you use it. So.
You want to cover
State bid, yeah, we're on the state bid. So we've put a bid already to the state. They've approved our price. A lot of our cities just go ahead and go through the state bid with it. So you can purchase directly off the state bid. It's a very simple process. You buy salt, police cars off of there. Our number's already there. It's actually cheaper on the state bid because if I'm under a prime contractor, I typically get marked up a little bit, right? And so if you guys go direct, there's no markup. It's actually less expensive for you. So all the city has to do is approve this, and then all of a sudden you write a letter. I have an example letter to the state saying I'd like to use Pave Tech on the 101L. Give it to the state. They write a letter back in a day saying, hey, they're all in there approved to go forward. So it's very fast. Yes.
Is your pricing done by, linear feet,
By the
square
gallon.
feet, or by the gallon?
It's by the gallon, yes. And if we go over the gallons, which a lot of times we do, we cannot charge you over the gallons. Our price, you cannot go above that price. If I shoot less, I owe you money. So you're safe. That number, that's a protected number. So if let's say I'm saying the road's going to take 800 gallons, I shoot 900, I still have to charge you the 800 gallons based
Okay,
on state bid.
so if we say we want you to do this street,
Yes.
and you estimate it's gonna take 800 gallons, but it really
Yes.
took 900, that's
Yeah.
on you?
That's on me.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys.
You're not gonna stop right at
Right,
800,
you'll-
leave a,
The only thing that could change, I still have to know your square yardage if your measurements are off. Let's say he gives me the measurements and I took your plan notes and it was 800 square yards and the road happened to be 2,000 square yards. Obviously, my gallons are going to go up because the measurements were off. But
So to validate how many gallons you use, is that something that triggers a ticket? So like Jeff
yes, we'll have tickets for you guys, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, and we love to take people out to roadways if there's any doubt, because again, this penetrates the road. You don't see it, right? Some people are like, why are they doing this, right? But the results are pretty clear of why. And, we have a lot of testimonials too. We're happy to go to. Yes.
Jeff Dunn, I'm gonna ask you your opinion on this. Is this something that you think would be a benefit to us and extend the life of our roads?
Actually, I'm the one promoting this.
Okay.
Actually, I got Lynn McKeever involved when he came back on board back in January. when we came to council about mill and pave, we actually talked about this a little bit. And Lynn, with his accident, he couldn't make it here because of that, so I had Landon step in, and yes, I think it's a good deal.
I don't know.
You said for the parking lots also,
I'm sorry.
Yes,
like our
we could.
city parking lot or the new ones we're gonna repave.
We're paving 3 parking lots this year, yes.
Plus this one here can be done because it's 2 years.
You would have to look at this one and see condition of it.
Right.
The only thing we're strapped with a little bit, it's kind of late in the year, right? So 50 degrees and rising is what so if this does get approved, we want to get it done this year. But obviously, where time is, as we get to the fall temperatures, if we want to get it done this year, some things, we'd have to, obviously, if you guys want to approve it, so we can get it scheduled pretty fast for you. But I don't know what your cost is. If you look at the amount of roads, the proposal I sent, there's 64,000 square yards roughly. I don't know the total amount.
I don't know the square yards of this one.
What I would say is look at how much that cost you in paving, and then look at the total dollars. So I'm basically covering 65,000 square yards for $60,000. My guess is that's about 600,000 or to $1 million worth of paving that we're covering for $60,000. So again, it's a good spend, conservative spend.
So if a road would typically last 6 years, we could get another 3 years out of it.
Yes, assuming
9
good
years.
base. Assuming good base. And I trust you, Sire, I trust Linda Keever, Jeff, that they're creating good roadways because you still have to have good base. You gotta have good paving spec. But if if I'm putting my house on sand, right, there's nothing I'm gonna do to preserve the house. It's gonna collapse. We got a good rock bed underneath the roadway. This will definitely extend the life of the roadway, for sure.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Is ODOT using this on any of the roads?
Yeah, so this is not ODOT, we don't put this on highways. So we do apply similar material on their joints, but we do not put this on highways. This is for residential collector streets. It's typically, we do not put this directly on the highways.
Is there a reason why?
Yeah, they typically have a lot of traffic on those highways at times. And so you flatten that rock bed out quite a bit, and so getting material into the pavement is somewhat difficult on the highways for this material.
So really, even here in town, any of our state routes or major throughways, this wouldn't be appropriate for?
It's funny, some cities though, they have an 80-20. A lot of cities will include the Reclamite on an 80-20 project because they like the Reclamite so much, and ODOT will approve. Obviously, the city has to pay for that, but they will still put this on an 80-20 project on the brand new asphalt right away. So you could do that if you wish. Any other questions, guys, that I can help answer?
So this is gonna save us money over the long run,
Yes, that's why we do this.
Cost us now, save us later.
right?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't know you were asking me.
Okay.
That's the goal anyway.
So what are you needing from us?
Well, I just really just needs to get moved on to, yeah, because you're in plating, we'll just be moving on to finance.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
So moved.
Sorry. Okay.
Aye.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Motion passed, we'll move it on to the finance. Okay, Fairview sidewalks. I'll leave that back to Jeff and Jen. Fairview sidewalks.
Doug's the one that brought it up.
I brought it up because a lady had called me that lives on Fairview Avenue. Lady called me that lives on Fairview Avenue, lives right at the end of Fairview where it comes to Southern at the intersection right there. And the sidewalk goes from Southern to the first driveway on Fairview on both sides of the street, on the east and west side of Fairview. The sidewalk stops after their driveway and continues no further down through the neighborhood. In front of her house, the sidewalk's starting to get deteriorated, torn up. She understands it's her responsibility to maintain, but she would like to remove the sidewalk and make it all yard. She basically came up to Landon, asked Landon. Landon told her that she needed to contact us and have us discuss this because, he can't just tell her that she can rip her sidewalk up and not have it there. But like I said, she would like to remove it. There's no sidewalk that goes any further than her driveway. So, I mean, I can see why she would want to remove it. I mean, nobody's really using it or walking on it anyways, because you can't walk any further past her driveway. So that's why I was bringing it up for you guys to see if it's something that we can entertain or something we want to entertain. If we have plans on extending those sidewalks any further down Fairview Avenue.
We don't have any plans. We've not talked about it, so right now, no.
Okay.
I mean, there isn't sidewalks all the way through that subdivision in some places. So.
No. Unfortunately, when they were built, I don't think we had as much of our zoning for sidewalks and stuff in place, so.
Yeah, another example of that is on Rosedale, Randy Kydevax. I visited with him today on another issue out there. The sidewalk stops at his property, and the next property doesn't have sidewalks. So it's throughout Huggins Division.
Yeah. So like I said, she's just looking for some guidance because she really doesn't want to pay to have the sidewalk replaced, but, you know, she was seeing if there was another option that she would have to just to have it removed, so.
So, Rob, what would we have to do to make it legal so that we're not opening up a can of worms?
Well, I was trying to, Fairview at Southern? Where?
Or, sorry, not Southern, Lynn, maybe? I can't remember the exact intersection, sorry, but it's on
okay.
Fairview.
I'm stuck on that. I was trying to figure out how you get to. Some of it's going to depend on the subdivision regulations out there, because especially in the older parts of Huggins, there may be deed restrictions or requirements for that to be there. So I mean, that would be the first place to look and see if there's any requirement, any deed restriction that requires that sidewalk to be there. Then we have our sidewalk ordinance, you know, to force replacement, but it doesn't really cover removal.
Right.
I
wasn't sure how it exactly
worked outside
of the bounds of how it's listed in the street ordinance.
Right, it doesn't really deal with removal. But the first place I'd start is whether or not there's any deed restriction or any subdivision regulation out there that is requiring that sidewalk to be there. Because it may be, some of those were constructed with the sidewalks, and it's very walkable, and other places not, so I don't know. That'd be the first place I'd look, though, make sure that there's no restriction on a deed.
Okay, so they say there's no restriction, then what's our option from there?
Our ordinance doesn't really cover. I don't know of anything in our sidewalk ordinance that says you have to maintain it.
Right, well, it's already there, so technically you should have to maintain it, not
Yeah.
remove it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Yes.
my understanding of our ordinance is that we have a requirement for the sidewalk if the property street frontage is a certain distance. Under that certain distance, it is required. Over that certain distance, it is not required. That might fall, have some bearing on this issue.
And it may, and there, I think that's an issue that's been litigated in the past as well.
If I'm remembering correctly, that's specifically related to subdivision developments at the time they're being proposed for approval. Based on the lot frontage, we can require sidewalks or not based on that. I don't know that that's the sidewalk ordinance for anything outside of the new subdivision approval process, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, in our ordinance states that, we can require sidewalks, we can require them to be repaired, just doesn't talk about removal. So, some of it would, the first place I'd look is the subdivision and the deed restrictions and see if there's anything there, but.
Do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, who bears the burden to do that search, us or the property owner?
The property owner would if they're looking to remove it.
I'd say we suggest she starts there. And then
Yeah, I will note that our ordinance does say planning commission does have discretion to move a sidewalk location. But it really doesn't talk about removal.
Sorry, I was wrong, it's Sunset.
Fairview and Sunset.
Yes.
rhymes with Southern.
I was really confused when you said Fairview and
Hey, it started with an S. I get turned around in Huggins subdivision. I've been here my whole life and I still get turned around that place. I couldn't find Mary Ann Lane where he lived for almost 2 weeks because I kept driving. Where is this thing?
So,
I'll reach back out to her and tell her to reach out to the county and check for deed restrictions or anything like that, and then depending on what she gets back to me with, I'll bring it back to you guys and we'll take it from there. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Yeah, and I'll get with Landon, we'll look through here and.
It's your fault, Landon, you sicked her on me.
I didn't mean to do that.
That's all right. That's what we're here for. She's got questions and we can give her some answers, so.
Yeah, I mean, our ordinance just talks about construction, repair, placement. Nothing talks about removal.
Maybe it's a good thing we bring this up to talk about that too.
all right. Well, we'll wait for that. Next one is the one I brought up for the alley vacation. Actually, I'm not asking for it to be vacated. We need to find a way. Jeff, you know where this is at. This is the alley off of West Mary, west of Poplar, going north before you get to the old Powers. It's now the veterinary. The second house from the corner, there's a driveway that goes back, an alley.
Yes, to the north.
To the north.
Okay.
It's only serving basically the one house clear back there because the property next to the old Powers building is now fenced off, and that alley is impossible for a fire truck to even go down, let alone try and make that 90-degree turn there in the upper right-hand corner of that picture there. And as you see, there's an alley coming out on Poplar across the street. And, you know, I don't know where our right-of-ways are, especially, do we have the right-of-way around the west side of the veterinary building? Is that a right-of-way for public right-of-way? I don't believe so. So we need to figure out what we can do to take care of that access, because no ambulance can get back there, the regular size ambulance. It'd be hard for them to make that turn, let alone try to get back out of there. Because there's a fence now where that red line is along that building. There's a fence right there, so it's impossible to get around. Is it possible for us to have McKeever and Associates look at the engineering of access strictly to Poplar there? Now that's about an 8-foot drop.
That's a heck of a grade right there.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
No, yeah.
I don't know. It's about an 8-foot drop from Poplar down to that level where that alley is.
Is there a reason that the alley just can't be one dead end instead of having a...
Well, I'm just saying, that building, you can't make that turn. A fire truck can't make a turn around that garage there and that telephone pole right there.
That's right.
A fire truck can't make the turn to get behind there. I'm just asking. I said we would look at this. I'm not saying for us to...
So you want access from Poplar?
That's just a suggestion.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, just a suggestion to possibly have access from Poplar Street and vacate the alley from Mary Street, so that a fire truck can get behind those properties and also to the house that's back there.
If you can see by this map here, we've got the interceptor sewer that goes through there, there's a manhole back here,
Right.
and that's one of my concerns would be, the sewer system to maintain it.
Right, it's hard for you to get around that. You can't get back there as easily since that fence is up.
Right, we just showed that we actually go all the way to the end of the alley.
Wasn't there like quite a wide area on the west side of Powers Building at one time? I mean, when Powers had the building, you could go on the west side of the building pretty easy and you go back in and get your rock and your bricks and everything.
But Landon, how far does that fence go right now? In that blue line there, isn't it go to that blue line?
It goes,
Behind that building there and to the next section right there, right?
it goes to here and then it kind of angles down and stops right in this area.
So there's no access to that west side, Bruce, that's why.
Don't they maintain like a parking lot back there?
Mike,
Isn't it all stone and blackout?
you got your mic on?
Well, I believe the property owners, which was Tim Lutz and whoever the other person is, put the fence up because people driving through there, semi parking back here, it just became a
Right.
issue to them.
So there's nobody living in that house back there?
No, they are living in that
Yeah,
house.
there's people.
So does that restrict them to getting to their house? Since
They have
can't
to
do
use
the-
that alley that, they can get back there through that alley.
Who would,
But if we had to get a fire truck or ambulance or a large utility vehicle, it would be very hard to make that turn right there, to
So
get
who
back
would-
there. Let alone, he needs to have access to the,
if you would close that east and west alley, who would it go back to? What did it come off of?
I'm
How
not,
would he get to his house?
I'm not saying close it.
Oh, okay,
I'm not saying close it. I'm saying access it from Poplar.
okay.
Change the access or have an alternative access to that from Poplar. But I don't know because, like I said, that's about an 8-foot drop from that sidewalk down to that driveway. Approximate. I mean, just me driving by and looking at it, it's approximately 8 foot.
He has to turn around in his yard there on the right side.
Right.
It's not that wide.
That's what I'm saying. It's really tight.
You should have kept that property on the corner and tore it down and took care of the problem, maybe.
It's for sale again, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
So
It would be
that's,
hard to get my sewer truck back here. I cannot get a garbage truck back here.
that's what I'm saying. I know you
In
can't.
fact, I have the people take the garbage out to West Mary Street.
So you're saying with a drop, how hard would it be to grade that out? So it's like less,
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, so I don't
Yeah, That
know.
would be engineering, if it's even possible.
So I was just wanting that, I told the gentleman I would bring it up to plating to investigate what this could be, what we could do for access back there. Especially, like I said, for ambulance or fire or utility vehicle, if you have to go back there for our sewer back there. You can't even get a dump truck around that corner there.
I think we just probably need to have Limbekeever and Associates look at it and see what they say.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's a little more of an issue there than just the access to the alley from Poplar Street or Mary Street. Also with the addition of that fence back there, that alleyway now, because of other structures of the property behind, next to the river, that farthest end of the alley there, up next to the river, that they would have to be able to get up through to be able to access the sewer manhole in that back there isn't wide enough now, really, anymore. So, in our BZA meeting, part of our decision was based on the fact that that section of the alley back there behind the Woods property and the veterinarian's property there would possibly be vacated.
Right. Right, I do remember. So the other alternative would be go along Poplar and come in the backside of that house. We'd have to see what the right-of-way is, wouldn't we? Jeff, would you agree?
Come in which way?
To be to the north side of that house, to go around the backside to get to the interceptor.
No, yes.
Because of where the fence is placed down there. Because I don't know where our right-of-way is, and, you know, it's also a steeper, as you go north, it gets steeper. Would you be able to have Lynn, the McKeever Associates, look at that to give us some estimates or
Guidance.
guidance? Yes, definitely need guidance because I'm not an engineer. I'll be the first one to admit that.
Sure, we should be able to do that. Land, does that property go across the road?
Okay.
The house back there.
Yep, build a bridge.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
another option there for access for the sewer system back there is on the west side of the property of the veterinarian's property there. That is a section through there that isn't owned. What's that term? What do they call it, Rob? Unplatted. It's an unplatted strip right there between the veterinarian's office and the river.
Yeah, just like on the other side of Mary,
Right, exactly.
behind your property on the west.
Exactly, yeah, behind
Yeah.
Hensley's.
Yes.
service
I would say when the interceptor sewer was put in, there's an easement for us to get back here. So if that fence would happen to be in the way,
We'll have to
it could be moved for us to get in there. I know there's a 10-foot easement to the interceptor down off of Highland Avenue, so that was put in at the same time period. So there's a possibility it might be an easement for it.
Okay. So, Mr. Wagner, you'd be able to help get something for us, some information?
Yeah, Jeff and I will reach out to Bill and the McKeevers.
And see what, to help us on the interceptor and also for access for emergency vehicles.
We will get that.
Okay. We have Inez. And I'm not sure.
This is what I had referred.
Yes.
Ray Bidoff, he's right out here.
Yes.
He has property at the end of Inez, and then his property runs east and west down to Ethel Street. There's property that, there's another property owner on the other side of this north-south alley. It goes nowhere. I talked to the property owners tonight, and they are in favor of closing the alley as well. And I'm gonna turn it over to Ray. I don't know, if you talked to Landon.
Yeah, I spoke to Landon the other day on the phone about calling the gas and electric to see if there was an easement or not. We weren't really sure whose responsibility that was.
As a portion of the, there's two different ways streets and alleys can be vacated, either by citizen petition or city-initiated action, and that dictates which way it goes. But in both instances, I believe the council clerk sends a letter to the utility companies notifying them that there's been a request to vacate that portion of the street or alley or right-of-way. I think more so than anything, it's a formality because they maintain their easements over their utilities anyway. So even if there was utility infrastructure in the area, they would still maintain their easements. So I think that is just kind of being good to notify them that the process is taking place, but.
If you kind of like zoom in on that, you'll see what we're talking about in that INES. It's just a little, it's like 16 by 100, that little long rectangle strip right there. Right at the end of my property. And
You
right now it's
can
grass.
see where the INE is,
Yeah.
that's going north towards Carly's, or going towards East Mansell Street.
Okay.
And it looks like it used to go all the way down to the railroad at one time. And there's a block here and a block there, and there's a bunch of different vacated places that went all the way down to the railroad. I think mine, and there might be another one there that's still there.
There's been portions of it that have been closed.
Instead of vacating the whole strip, it like chunked up in little pieces.
This is the indication. This is what you typically see here with this, these gold land hooks and property lines, and then they would have, vacated Inez Street. So this portion here that leads up to the railroad was vacated at some point, but I don't see those indications. All of these lot lines indicate to me that has always been private property moving through there. So why there's this little peninsula of whether it's considered Inez Street or alley, I don't know. It's undeveloped right of way, whichever it is.
So it's always been grass.
Kind of odd.
There's a big cottonwood tree that I was hoping would fall down while it was still city property. It cost me about $2,000 to take it down. It's about ready to fall down.
So what do we need to do, Landon?
Well, it depends on, if this is gonna be city initiated, then it's a little bit different than what the process is, and I'll have to look, because that's under the streets code, so it's not specifically in my code, but,
I mean, like we did over on, East Southern, east of Highland, we vacated that alley.
90102.
Remember, there was between those two properties.
That's right. Really may have been, I don't know.
Really, Rob? I know 102.
That's the ordinance.
I know, that's what I'm like, really?
Oh, wow.
Jennifer. Jen.
Just a quick question. Landon, is it possible that when it was vacated, whenever on that section that you could see there on the map, that it just wasn't continued to the rest of it?
Thank you.
That the whole thing would have been, but the county didn't?
I suppose it's possible, depending on how long ago this happened, but that's not typically what it looks like when that is the case. What it typically looks like is that those yellow land hooks and lines that you saw there. It'd be difficult to say if it was done, 150 years ago, whether or not that was the case, but it doesn't appear that way to me looking at it.
And traditionally, that information is kept up at the county, correct? Thank you.
But this is the city-initiated street or alley vacation process. So it's more straightforward than the citizen enacted portion of it. Essentially, we would notify adjoining property owners, we would notify utility companies, and a vacation plat would be drawn. And under normal circumstances, the property is split between the adjoining property owners. So if it's a 12-foot section, 6 foot would go to Mr. Thidoff, 6 foot would
I've
go.
actually got a vacate plat already drawn up.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
I paid for it myself.
There you go. So that'd be one step of that done.
So, committee, what do you think?
I think we should move forward.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We'll proceed with the city initiated to vacate that section of Inez.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go through the process. What else do we don't have to do anything else? You're going to initiate it, Landon, and then it has to come back to...
I believe it'll go through Rebecca's office, but yeah, I'll work with her on it.
Okay,
It'll be her first one.
okay.
He's pretty helpful.
All right, any open projects that you want to discuss tonight? If not, I will end plating at 7:05 PM.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call service meeting to order at 7:05 PM. Aaron Sherrick is absent this evening, so members present are Kevin Myers and Lisa Alsep and myself. The first order of business is OPWC. Mr. Wagner.
Yes, thank you. I have brought Jennifer Jeanette in. She is helping coordinate part of the Nevada Waterline project, and she's working on some other grants with this infrastructure money coming out. But she'll highlight a little bit about that. But just wanted to kind of update you about the OPWC for next year, and that's part of the Nevada Waterline. So she'll kind of explain to apply for our share of $185,000. But we're still looking to get it loan forgive when it's all said and done. But in case we don't, we have this to at least fund some of it. So Jennifer, you just want to take a couple minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Good evening. Okay, so right now in the funding world, there's a lot of infrastructure funding coming in the form of grants, which is great for all of us working to improve infrastructure. And so one of the applications for Water Infrastructure Grant Program that was just released last month from the governor's office, the Nevada Extension project will be included with that. So what I'm trying to say is all things and everything goes well, we'll apply for that grant, that project will be funded. And it will not be of any cost because it'll be grant funding. But there is always a possibility when you apply for grant funding that you don't always get it, or you may not get all of what you're asking for. So that being said, we have to also plan ahead and apply for other funding and other possibilities of funding this project. So that is why we're talking about OPWC, is because if we don't receive the grant funding, then to fund that project, the extension to Nevada, we would need to be planning ahead by applying and anticipating receiving that funding. Now, if we would receive all the grant funding that we're asking for, then we won't need that funding, but we won't know that in time. So we have to go ahead and apply. We'll also be submitting an application through Ohio EPA for their funding program as well. That program has a principal forgiveness portion, which is, they don't want to call it a grant, but what it is they forgive half of the principal for a loan for a regionalization project if you're selected. So it's not a guarantee, but it is a good possibility with all the regionalization that we're in this county that's occurring, and it's a great project extending to Nevada where water is much needed from here to there. So I guess what I'm telling you is that funding is a moving target. They all have different regulations, they have different deadlines, they have different timelines, and so what I've been contracted to do is help navigate all of those things. And it just so happens that this grant funding through the governor's office has came out in the meantime. So we're hoping for that, and that's what we want to happen. But we want to have our ducks in a row in case that doesn't happen. So we need to go ahead and apply for the OPWC for $185,000 so that if we don't receive the funding, we have other backup funding in place.
We have Cindy Brooks also from RCAP working on it and is filing the correct paperwork as we go.
Yes.
We've been meeting with Nevada monthly to make sure everybody's doing their part, making sure everything is getting turned in a timely manner. And so the OPWC tonight will just be allowing us to apply for the grant for $185,000 towards the Nevada Waterline project.
Yes.
And then I can go through Mark Baker and send it in to the county.
Yeah, and just on a side note, we are working on several other projects that we're applying for the grant funding, the Water Infrastructure Grant Program. You can apply for several applications, so there's several applications that will be going through. Each project for construction can be up to $5 million. So it's a great time to do projects that need done and, make that attempt to receive grant funding, so it saves the city money as far as expenditures. So we are working on several other projects, but it's just this time frame for the OPWC. We need to get that application in for this project, so.
I don't know which one of you has the answers. I got several questions. 185,000 OPWC. If we get these other grants you're talking about, we won't need to use that OPWC grant, correct?
If we get the Ohio infrastructure, we would not.
So if we go ahead and apply for the OPWC tonight and end up not needing it, did we just piss that away? Or is that able to be used on something else? Can you have a backup project for it?
I'm under the understanding it goes back into their fund.
It goes back into
We just
their fund.
wouldn't get any, we wouldn't have an
Correct.
OPWC project?
No.
They're very specific.
Yes.
What you can use those funds for. Once you apply for it, it's got to be back.
Is this our only option then as a backup plan? I mean, I guess I see that as, I don't know that I like that idea that, there's something else we could do with an OPWC grant.
Well, we would be doing the Ohio EPA funding, but that would be a loan grant. And so what that $185,000 would be going towards minimizing the loan part, because that's what I was talking about, the 50% principal forgiveness. So if you had a loan, for $1 million for a project, then you get 50% principal forgiveness. There's still a balance there, and then that $185,000 would go towards
So
that.
either way, that 185,000 would have been needed then.
But not if we receive the grant that we're applying for, which you'll know within about, before you accept the funding and all of that, we would be able to let them know that it wasn't needed because other grant funding was received that covered the whole project. But if that grant funding is not received, then this chips away. When I look at a project, and I looked at funding, you start with the whole amount and you start chipping away. You add, as things come up or as things are available, you chip away so that you can get to the least amount of loan amount that you have to take on or pay out of pocket for. And this OPWC chips away at that amount that the city would have to pay for.
This is basically the same program that Lynn brought to us when we
Yeah.
started working with Nevada.
I get that. I guess my hang up on that is really that we're applying for a grant that we may not need. Because we may get another grant.
But if we get the other grant and it's paying for everything, the money just goes back into the OPWC fund. So at that point, we didn't need it, which is great, because we got it loan forgive. But in case we don't, and we only get it forgived at 50%.
Does that benefit us any down the road, when we apply for our next OPWC grant next year? Does it help us? Does it hurt us?
I don't think it
It's
does either
neutral,
way.
yeah.
We've always used that OPWC grant since I've been here.
Right.
But, this is a way for us to have a backup in case we gotta pay $500,000 of it. That 185 will come right off the top, and then we would only owe the difference. So it's kind of one of those catch-22, if you don't do it, then you could owe all of it. Yeah.
I get it, and I see what you're trying to do. It's not, I struggle with that.
Jimmy?
No, I just, will it hurt us with the OPWC grant? Will that hurt us if we ever put in for it again?
No, it's neutral. I mean, each year they open up the applications. It doesn't look bad on you or good on you. If you apply every year, you don't. I mean, some communities apply every year and are able to fund a project. Some communities don't apply every year. They just apply when they need funding. So it would be a neutral. It's not a positive or a negative.
But I do know that conversations in here before said that, I believe it was a SAFER grant, that if you applied for it, then you turned it down, that would hurt you in the future for that safer grant, would that be any different than the APC?
Not for OPWC. Honestly, it would just be neutral. Typically, if you receive grant money, you want to spend all the grant money you receive. But if you say, before you receive, because you would know about this way in advance, and you could say, thank you, but we received other funding, we appreciate it, but we're good. Now, that's different than you get funding, and you said you need 185,000, and you only spent 130, and you're sending back, 50. That's not always the best case scenario, because you didn't do good planning is what it looks like, But if you, as long, as before it's issued, you say, we received other funding, it's not going to be it's not going to penalize you in any way.
Yeah. But does that affect our relationship with other cities in the county that would have wanted that money for a project that year? And use that, if we don't use the money and nobody uses it, some other city's gonna say, well, we should have never asked for it, we could have used it. Okay.
In my experience, at least at the county level with the OPWC, in that instance, when they have projects, they have like the top 10, and I assume they still do the scoring with
Yes,
the points
they
and all
still
that.
do the scoring,
So you
yep.
have your points, and say the first 10 are the ones that are funded, 2 of them turn down their money, they go
It
down
goes
to the
down.
next line.
Yes.
Within the county?
Yes.
Yes.
So us turning it down would actually benefit somebody in the county versus hurting
Correct.
somebody in the county.
So,
Correct.
so if we turn it down to that period of time, those people will still have an option of using it then?
Correct, because they have submitted a request. It just didn't have all the point criterion that the top 10 did.
Right.
Okay.
And it doesn't, at least from my experience at the county level, for the 8 years that we were working on OPWC, if we turned back money, it wasn't detrimental the following year. It just moved down the line.
They reallocate to someone else or to another project.
Right.
Lisa? Okay. Well, at this present time, then, I need a motion to send it on to finance. Okay, motion by the second. So apparently everybody's in favor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, water line proposal.
Well, I take it you're referring to the commissioners and,
Yes.
Okay.
I suspect.
I think what they want is just a letter of participation that we'll be willing to and support what they want to do, and we'll take care of our share. And that'll probably be spread out over the next 2 to 3 years, I'm gonna guess. Has to be done by 2024, correct?
My understanding, when you do engineering fees, those are paid up front.
Yeah, but I did
Well-
ask the question, and I think he said it could be next year.
Right, it would be next year, is what he was
So-
saying, but it's an upfront cost, it's not one that's spread over the time period.
I was just talking about the projects.
Right.
But if the engineering is part of what we need to pay our share.
Right.
Then we could easily put that in our budget for next year and the following year, depending on how far they get.
I'm willing to give my support to this, however, not tonight. I don't have the auditor here, and I want to ask some questions about the financial part of that, where exactly that's going to come from, how that's going to make those funds look, and I don't have those answers, so I'm going to say I'm not willing to move this on until we can get those questions answered, so they're going to have to wait another 2 weeks to hear from me.
Are you willing to move it out of service to finance?
Yeah, because I think from the service standpoint, so okay. But I really think we need to get those questions answered by Joyce before we can commit 100% to it.
Mark?
Did they not say approximately 380,000?
Yes.
They did, yeah, 383,000, I believe, was the
I
number.
think the overall project with engineering was around
Our
4
portion
million.
approximately, he said, and that was a rough estimate until the
383,
engineering comes
I
in.
remember.
Correct.
It could be less.
381.5.
Okay. That was the question, that's all.
They said 11%, and that's actually less than 11%. 11% would be like 4.
I just, from the financial standpoint, I want to hear the plan before we commit.
So we'll just leave it in finance then?
All right, well, can I get a motion and a second?
So moved to send it to finance.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We're moving it on to finance. Give me a time. I'm going to.
7:20.
7:20.
7:20.
7:20.
I'm calling finance to order at 7:20. Okay, the street reclaimment. How much are we talking on the streets that, do you have an estimate?
Yeah, it should be in your packet. If you'd like, I'll walk down through that sheet I gave you.
This one?
Yeah, the financial sheet, yes.
Before you do that, if I may, is the overall concept though really going to be, if we like this idea that when you turn us in a list for, we have enough money to set aside, we want to pave, these 24 streets. Now maybe we're only going to pave these 22 streets and we're going to do reclaimment on these streets. Is that kind of the mindset what we're
Well,
looking at?
I think I can let Jeff answer that, but I'll give my 2 cents. I think as we put together 2 or 3 years worth of street paving, we'll know the square yardage or footage or gallons he's gonna need for last year's that we did, and that would be part of the budget, like we'll put in next year. What we do this year, we already have that list, we can get that cost from him, and then we can make it part of our budget.
So is there still something yet this year you want to do with that, or do you
I
want to
think,
first enter it? Okay.
yes, if we can get this passed,
With
they'll come
this,
in and do
okay.
last year's and do Edgewood
Okay.
this year. So this sheet here just kind of shows you where we have the money left, even from our street improvements, that where our budget came in with actual bids. So, the mill and pave came in at $1.6 million is what we budgeted. It came in at $1.297 million. I'm not going to read every number. We have a balance left of $302,000 roughly. Edgewood budget was $350,000. We actually came in at $265,000. So we have an $84,000 balance left of that. With those 2 projects, we have $387,000 and some change sitting there. Now that might change a little bit to a few change orders we might run across as we do these projects. But as you look at the $387,000, you go down to the street garage where we're going to pave out there, which we were going to take out of that balance. That was $246,000. Still leaves us $140,000 and some change. And this project of doing the reclaimment was $60,000. So we'd still roughly have a carryover of $80,000 from the $1.6 million is what we put in the budget for street improvements.
Have any questions, Jim?
Jim's got one.
This takes care of the parking lots?
Say it again?
No,
No.
no, that's just the street garage paving.
So are we willing to do the parking lots yet?
Yes.
I mean, is there a way we'll have measurements from the actual blacktopping?
Yeah, that would be on the 2022. We would do this in 2022 for the parking lots. Let them set a year
And then,
spread next year.
yeah.
This year's mill and pave would be sprayed next year. This year we would spray 2020s of a cost of $60,000.
And is that figured to spray everything that we paved last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, including Edgewood they're doing
Right.
right now.
But we would spray that yet this year?
They said they would.
Yes,
And
and
that-
the reason is, that's kind of a test deal.
Okay.
To do street versus 1 year.
Okay.
Old, so it'd be like a test deal.
They're saying the sooner the better.
Yes, no later than 3 years.
No later than 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So going forward, are you planning on doing this to every street that we pave?
Yes, if you remember back in January, we put in a 3-year mill and pave, $1.6 million each year, plus whatever it costs of doing this.
Yes, Lisa.
Question. You have the mill and pave budgeted at 1.6, and Then you have Edgewood budgeted at 350,000. That's not included in that top number then?
No, that was-
Edgewood was
that's a
not?
separate-
That was a separate
Yeah.
project?
And actually, that was from a year ago that we didn't get done.
And the reason
Okay.
it was
Carried it
separate,
over.
it was not bid underneath the mill and pave because curbing was being done.
Gotcha.
Concrete was taken out.
And that has to be from a different line?
Yeah, different
Okay.
type of
Gotcha.
contractors.
Edgewood was WPOC,
OPWC.
OPWC,
Yeah, that was cute.
so we have to pay that back?
No, that's, no.
It's a grant.
No, it's just out of the street department, or the street fund.
Okay.
Okay. So they're asking for us to approve the expenditure of $60,395 for the 2020 mill and pave streets. Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Okay.
That as an emergency.
As an emergency.
Is there any other discussion, questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimously. Okay, next item. We're going to put, we have to wait on that OPWC, right? Your,
No, the water line project's the one I was talking about waiting on.
yeah,
The OPWC is, we need to just do a resolution that we're gonna apply for the grant for 185,000. And Rebecca has a copy of one we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just need to replace some wording that we want to apply in 2022 for the water line to Nevada and apply for the grant for 185,000.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I do have a question. Was that young lady that was here earlier, is that a grant writer that we hired?
Yes.
And where do we pay them from?
We
I
have
mean,
a
don't think that I'm
outside
judging because
contractors.
they're smart.
Yeah, outside contractors.
Okay.
It's not very expensive.
No,
But she
and I know
keeps-
that they're very smart and detail oriented, so.
She does a very good job.
Yeah, they also make some offer when they get us, right?
Correct.
10%, whatever.
Okay, so I need a motion. We do not need to make this as an emergency, do we? Or do you have a time constraint?
Yeah, I think we do. It has to be into the county engineer by the end of September, I do believe.
So,
I so moved to make this
apply for,
application as an emergency.
okay. Do I have a second? Second. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimous. Water line project, we're going to table that until Joyce can give us some more information. Okay, the ambulance cruiser purchase, we already discussed.
We discussed it at length, but I couldn't wrap my head around. I wanted to keep $50,000 in there so nobody could touch it. But we can't do that because it's all allocated out. So that's why I was taking so long trying to figure out, if we take one of the cruisers out of it, and we keep that money into 271, now we can't take that money and give it to the bicentennial and, the mayor give it to the park or something like that. That's what I was trying to avoid.
Right, the money is staying there. It isn't going to go anywhere. We have to move it out if we,
If it's in the 721, but if we move it down into the to the other ones, the capital outlays, then the mayor can move that somewhere else, correct?
he can't move it, we have to move it.
No matter what the amount is.
Right, if we put it somewhere for a certain purpose, it stays there.
Jim's confused because he's thinking about projects that are under the threshold of having to come to council.
Right.
That's what he's getting at.
Right.
Correct.
But if it's appropriated, the administration can spend it out of those line items.
If it's under $50,000?
Yes.
As many times as they want, right up to 500 grand, whatever.
They can come in here and tell you, we're gonna spend it on this, as soon as it gets appropriated, they can go and spend it on something else.
And
They're not obligated to-
That's what happened, and
what
that's
we've been
why
talking about,
I
avoiding
get upset.
As long as it's under 50,000, you cannot control what they spend it on. You can
So-
only control it being appropriated.
And that's governed by the state?
But if you only put the money in the line item to pay for the ambulance and the cruisers and the gear you wanted, that's all it can be spent on. So the rest of it sits like in the bank until it's appropriated. And then no one can touch it.
It's in the fund, we can't move it. He can't move it to spend on
It's
the
in the
general
bank,
fund.
it's not in any fund
Right.
until you appropriate it. So like if you appropriate the money for the ambulance, the cruisers, and the gear that Chad needed, that's all it can be spent on. And if the amount was 610,000 and there's, let's just say 20,000 left, then you don't appropriate that anywhere and it sits in the bank. And nobody can touch it until you guys approve it.
So it would sit in the local fiscal recovery act of 2021.
Right.
271, right?
And yeah, because that would be the income line, I would assume.
Well, the income.
I would
line-
ask Joyce.
And no one can touch that income line unless we bring it out.
That's right. What's the time limit on it? Doesn't that money go back?
2024, isn't that what he said?
2024.
There's plenty of time.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get more next
I know
year
the
to add
mayor
to
kept
it.
saying.
Yes.
We gotta spend it, we gotta spend it. Well,
Yeah.
no, we don't. We have
That's what
several
exactly what he
years.
did say, we gotta spend it.
Well, but he also said that we should put some and not allocate it anywhere.
Yeah, he wanted to put it in the general fund for
No,
income.
No, he wanted it to sit in the bank to see what our revenue was in '22 and '23, in case we.
Revenue replacement was what he called it,
Yeah,
which is
but
general
you can't
fund,
do it
open
until he comes and
checkbook,
gives it.
no way.
So,
Rebecca.
I will say the fire department said there is a timeline because they are taking over the EMS at the 1st of November.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to have the ambulance.
Yeah. And then also, I put it on today's agenda because you guys voted to appropriate money yesterday, but you did not vote to authorize for the purchases. Yeah.
That's what I was getting ready to bring up here.
Okay.
I'm just confused as to why everything is always an emergency. I get that, like that ambulance, they're not getting it by November. There's no way.
No, the emergency is to let them start the process to
I
get it.
thought he said all he needed was a letter.
They can't purchase it until it's been approved.
Till we pass legislation authorizing.
And the money is sitting there to be used. Kevin?
So we do need to request, and I'm making a motion to request a resolution that authorizes the service director to enter into state bid contract with Superior Sales for that dollar amount for the ambulance, which Rebecca, you have that was 298,000 and what? I don't remember the number.
I don't have the specific.
Okay, I was told you had it. marked.
I have it.
I'm trying to.
Just the ambulance, not the total at the end of that
Right, you're
column,
just
just
talking
the
about the
ambulance
base
cost.
price of the
It was-
ambulance.
I know it's 440,
No,
670.
it's just the ambulance, not everything else on the list of the
No, it was
equipment.
like 292,
Oh,
I
just the
thought.
ambulance?
Just the ambulance.
297.
298?
Yeah, it was
Okay, none of us are
298.
right.
298, I believe.
I have Chad's sheet over on my email, do you want me to?
Well, if I'm gonna make the motion, I'd like to have the right number.
You might already have it. Is it attached to that?
No, because this is,
Yes.
oh,
Here's yesterday.
$296,821.
So a question to the resolution, is that the only place we can go to bid out a vehicle?
It's state bid pricing,
Yeah.
so you would get that price wherever you go, and in this instance, we want to get it from the same place we got the last one from, so that they're the same.
So there's continuity there, right?
Right, so that the paramedics aren't in the back of one that's set up completely different from the other one.
That's what she's talking
Yeah.
about. Gotcha.
Do we need two separate resolutions for the cruisers, or can this be on one resolution, Rob?
The resolution authorizing the service safety director to purchase the equipment can all be on one resolution.
Okay.
But you'll need a separate ordinance for doing the appropriations and all that, but this is giving you that.
So am I just doing the ambulance first, and then we'll go back and do one for the cruisers?
Well, the appropriations for the ambulances and the police cars.
That was done last night.
Okay, so
Okay.
that ordinance is done.
So in my motion for the 296,821 to P-Fund Superior Sales for the state bid for the ambulance, I will also then add in the, to authorize him to enter into state bid pricing with PAR, that total cost of the 3 cruisers, which was
151, 350, 120.
151,000.
350, 120.
351 and 20 cents as an emergency legislation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Is that an emergency?
Yes.
Okay, I have a first and a second. If there's no other discussion, questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimous. Okay. Surface Pro, I'm sorry.
This is one that I brought up a couple weeks ago, and Rebecca had some information that she wanted to share just for the cost for the toner for her.
Thanks,
printer.
Jeff.
Thanks. The cost for the toner for her printer, which is still not even a majority of what she's printing, was $414, and she just wanted to throw that into the conversation. I know we talked about it. I know Bruce is against it, just from the materialistic standpoint of, we're not gonna save what we're gonna spend. Is that kind of where you were at with that?
Oh, you can buy 5,000 sheets of paper for
Right.
$80, and that's for 1 month. I mean, or spend $10,000 on computers.
I know
Buy a lot of paper for $10,000.
from my standpoint, I'm in favor of it. I'd like to go to that, because what am I gonna do at the end of the night with the majority of this paper goes in the trash? I feel wasteful where if I've got the computer, like the information that I'm sitting here wishing that I had from last night, I'd have it ready to pull back up.
I got it.
Yeah, I don't.
What you need?
So,
You guys forgot
The ordinance from 2012.
Yeah, well, that I don't have.
I mean, I'm content to either discuss it now or to leave it hang till later.
Just leave it hang till we're gone.
Okay, that'd be a-
How about that?
Yeah, I'm content with that.
They want to spend that money?
So let's table that.
Okay. All right, do you have any open projects you want to discuss? If not, I'll adjourn finance at 7:38 PM.
Call health and safety to order at 7:38 PM. Members present are Jim Mee, Bruce Truca, Martin Keever, myself, Chair. Our first topic is the liquor permit for Hopley Avenue for the company coming in to open that gas station back up under the name of, I just had it. Yeah.
Jordan Oil.
Jordan Oil. I already spoke to the police chief. He has no objections. Rob, do you have any objections?
Nope.
So if we take no action, that basically means we're not asking for a hearing.
Yeah, they like a response from us that we don't, so we typically just.
I make
do
a motion to take no
Second.
action.
Hold on, hold on.
We gotta discuss.
I knew he was gonna do that.
I'm just saying.
It's 1,000 feet away from the school, right?
Yeah. Closer than 1,000 foot.
So,
It's also next to a church.
My take on that was, though, that's the state can designate where they will and won't allow it. And I also brought up the point that when Lawson's used to be across the street, it was actually closer to the school than this was.
I have a question.
oh, this is a block and a half away, Lawson's.
They sold beer there before.
Did they?
Yeah.
They sold beer there before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know that because
Because you bought beer there.
I had older people buy me beer there. But yeah, they sold beer there.
They also did apply for a beer permit.
Yeah.
It's not liquor, it's beer.
Yeah, it's
Beer,
just
not
beer.
liquor. Okay.
It's just beer.
And they do need some type of response, either a request for a hearing, a denial of a hearing, or a request for an extension by tomorrow.
All right. Well, the thing about that is we can't send them anything tomorrow because this committee's gonna send whatever we decide to do on to full council, so they're not getting anything by tomorrow.
Is that going to stop the sale? Is it contingent?
No.
I don't think does it normally go through like that?
Well, the ones we've done in the past, if this committee has taken no action, we've
Right.
just not done anything.
Right, all I have to do is just send it back that you
Yeah.
don't want a hearing.
So yeah, since there's no legislation required, we can just do that
That's
out of
what
this
we generally
committee.
do, and you usually
Okay.
just authorize the clerk to send them a letter that we don't want to hear.
So the neighborhood don't really have any say in it?
This, the churches should have a say in it. Churches should have got something on it.
Yeah, there's a state process, and the notification would go to individual groups, so this is just for us, and whether or not we have any objections.
So would it?
Whether the neighborhood have any objection, or schools, or churches, or anything like that, that's through them and the liquor board, not us.
Would the school board get a letter? Would they?
I don't know.
Jamie says yes.
Yeah, I don't know if they
When
do.
we had them come up before the county, they went to all the organizations. So the church would get one, we would get one, and the school would get one.
I thought that's how it worked, because for a long
You
time,
guys
the
admit-
7-day Adventist stopped Walmart from getting a liquor permit out there, so I thought.
Who did?
It used to be a dry township out there where Walmart's at, because, something before, they tried to get that changed when Walmart came in and opened, so they could sell beer, but the church that sits next to Duke put a stop to it because they didn't want alcohol sales at the church.
Because it's a
Said
dry
that, that
township.
threw me off.
Right.
Sorry.
And each one of those organizations has the opportunity to request a hearing
Yeah.
or,
So we're just really saying on behalf
On
of the
behalf
city
of-
of Bucyrus.
right, on behalf of the city, we don't have any objection to it. The church or the school has the opportunity to put up an
object.
They
objection.
have the same opportunity we do.
Correct.
I'm good with this.
All right.
Better,
So I'm either asking for a motion to request a hearing or not request a hearing.
Not requesting.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
For discussion?
Mr. Wagner?
I'll jump in if.
No,
you-
go ahead.
Previously, we had requested legislation to allow for lateral transfers. We talked about doing it in policing and fire, and at that time, we had just acquired the MOU with the fire union, and we were in negotiations with the police union to allow for lateral transfers. Those negotiations kind of fell apart. It was decided that it was going to be best to just include the police lateral transfers as part of their contract. It's coming up next month. We start those negotiations. So we didn't complete legislation because we didn't have all that put together. Plus, the legislation request didn't really talk about developing the civil service rules in the way they implement it. And one of the reasons for that was because we were holding off because we didn't want one set of rules for fire, one set of rules for police, and maybe even another one for ASME down the road. But because of the delays and things like that, that doesn't exist right now. So it's imperative with the EMS and all that for fire to start being able to apply for lateral transfers. I think they even have a couple of people that are interested. So we want to go ahead and get that implemented so that fire can do their lateral transfers and we can adopt those civil service rules for them. We will have this as part of the police contract later this fall. We will try to make it conform as much as possible to the civil service rules that already exist for fire, but there may be some tweaks. So we may end up with some slight differences for lateral transfers in the two different departments. We want to try to avoid that so we don't have any unfair claims, but we'll try to make it as close as possible so that it doesn't require that. But this will allow us to get the rules for civil service for their process in place and allow us to adjust our code so that we can allow for the lateral transfers as well. And we'll just go ahead and do that all in a big piece of legislation and get that to you in an emergency.
So I feel it's better to get somebody in there with a lateral that has experience rather than bring them up.
Yeah, and
By far.
by
Yeah,
far.
and we were trying to do both, and in July, that's what the plan was, but then that just got complicated with police union, and no fault of anybody's, it's just, there's some other issues that we need to take into consideration there, so we just thought best to do that as part of their contract this fall.
So the reason it's being considered for an emergency is because of the timeline that we're looking at for November 1st for them to take over.
Yeah, we've already put them off for 4 or 5 weeks since we originally did this legislation, trying to see about getting some of the other stuff done. So we're even, that 4 or 5 weeks closer than we wanted to be.
All in favor?
I did have a motion and I had a second. Okay, so any discussion? All in favor, say aye. I forgot where we were at. Opposed, the same? All right, that motion carries. Are there any other open projects for health and safety anybody wishes to address this evening?
All right.
Go ahead and step to the podium and give us your name and address.
My name's Ken Long, 625 South Spring Street here in town. The reason I'm here, Gary Harris was at I think your last meeting. I was also in attendance, and he brought up the issue with a property maintenance violation, about the language in that violation. He asked me to step in and help keep that thing moving.
Yeah, and I talked to Gary, and I did not email you a copy of that proposed new code that council is considering.
Oh, yeah, I'm not aware of it at all.
Yeah, and then we talked about that last time, and I told you I was going to email you one, but I did not email you one. I printed a hard copy for Gary, and I think I'll have to follow up with Gordon and see if he gave that to him or not, but I'll email that to you in the morning.
I have someone else who contacted me that's interested in that, which is why I got that packet out.
I think the clerk's office has it, so anybody that wants it
She
can email
has
it.
a copy of the draft.
Yeah, I think the clerk, when I email you in the morning, Ken, I'll CC Rebecca, and then that way, anybody that wants it can get it from Rebecca.
So as far as the draft, the proposed draft, does it change the language in that?
It changes everything, Ken. It
Okay.
gets away from if you want to stop in sometime and go over that, I'd be happy to. It gets away from that International Property Maintenance Code and just all that verbiage that's in there for all those different things. Kind of narrows it down to the important stuff. Sure. I think the entire ordinance is maybe 15, 20 pages, somewhere in that range, as opposed to that IPMC, which is,
Oh, sure, it's a book.
Yeah.
2,000 pages.
So that's a draft. So is there going to be discussion and at what time, or how does it get implemented?
Health and Safety Committee, and we've talked about it a couple of times briefly in committee meetings. Health and Safety Committee really kind of needs to sit down and go through it line by line and see what they like, what they don't like, because it's something that I've written and I've given to other communities as well. So you want to tailor it to us, and that's just really what needs to happen. The committee needs to sit down and go through it, and then maybe have a public hearing where they get some landlord opinions, get some tenant opinions and things like that.
That'll be happening over the next few months, I'm assuming?
Yeah, when you're ready to go through it with us, I mean, I know you're getting ready to leave, but.
Yeah, anytime. And that's why I gave it to you guys, because it's yours to.
Would you like us, in your opinion?
Is this it?
Yes.
What we
Yeah.
have in our packet, it's 28 pages long.
Yeah.
28.
Ryan
Which is still
Ryan
thinner
needs
than
15.
the
I mean, do you guys on the committee want to go through this individually, or do you want to sit down in a committee meeting and go through it page by page?
Committee's easier, I mean.
We can discuss. Yeah. Do you guys want to create a special standalone committee meeting some evening just for that purpose, so that we can come in and go through it before Rob leaves, and since he wrote it, and have him go through it and give us a chance to ask some questions and tweak it?
Yeah, I mean, I would set aside a good hour and a half. There's a lot in it. There needs to be, but.
What are you thinking?
I think we ought to meet over at my mom's house, since I'm taking care of her.
Is there room for public seating there? Does she have a podium?
We got a big garage.
Yeah. You guys tell me when you think is good for that. Rob, when's your last day here?
I'll be around mostly through the end of the month. But I'm in an online training thing, so, you know, I'll be doing that during the day in the month of October. So, I mean, I could come up and I wouldn't have an official role, but I could walk you through it, you know, one evening if it gets into next
So really,
month.
you're the one with the schedule I want to make sure that you're content with. I mean, do you want to try to tackle this sooner than later, or do you want to give it a few weeks, or what do you think?
Why don't we try it next week and see what we can do?
Okay. Let me know. Tuesday or Thursday next week, maybe?
Tuesday, the 14th?
Yep.
How's that for you, Bruce?
I don't care, that's fine.
6 PM?
Yes.
Where at?
I think right here.
Tuesday?
Tuesday, the 14th at 6 PM right here.
And is that open to the public?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It's
very
a
good.
Yeah,
public
and,
meeting.
you know,
Yeah, be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, thank you. I appreciate the proactiveness, you know, trying to make something better. I do have one other comment related to this. This wasn't brought up 2 weeks ago. When a property owner gets a notice, they have 10 days to cut grass, you know, clean up the yard, whatever. 10 days expire, and in theory, if the work is done, there's no notice that it's passed, or there's no notice that it didn't pass. And so there's no closure. And so I would welcome some type of closure from the inspector, good or bad, just so we know where we're at.
you're saying if like you were the one that called the complaint in, or?
No. If I'm the recipient of a.
You're given a notice for a violation?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Is that?
Yeah, no, and Ken's got a point there, and there's two sides to it as well. One is if a case is closed administratively, landlords get notice to it. The other, and it happens even more frequently, and I think Ken will attest to this, is if it's 10 days, it maybe gets fixed on day 11 or 12, that notice may be down at the police station, and it may not get served till maybe day 30. Well, it was fixed day 12 or 15 maybe, and so it didn't need to go any further, even though it was done a little bit later than normal. But just because of manpower and things like that, or even tracking down who it is, it doesn't get served. So then they end up in court 3 months later for something that was fixed 15 days later. And that's one of the things that we're trying to accomplish in this, is just keeping us all out of court, so that, you know, we're handling it internally in the city, and that's one of the goals of that. Because, you know, once we turn it over to the police department for service, we don't really have control. They serve it as best they can, and it drags everything out and it complicates things. And so that's one of the things we're trying to avoid with that.
So yeah, if you'll send him a copy of that, and then, you know, come with your red pen notes on it and your questions. And
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I understand what Rob just said, but I'm just saying a vanilla case, 10 days, I have to mow grass. Okay. I mow grass on the 7th day, so I'm in compliance. But even though I'm in compliance and the inspector comes out after those 10 days are up, I don't receive anything hard in my hand that says we're done.
Yeah, so that might be just something, a process that could be changed within your office.
Right. Because right now, it just lurks out there. You just hope things are compliant.
Right.
So, all right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. All right, any other open projects? All right, we'll close health and safety down at 7:56 PM. And I've been told economic development is not going to meet tonight, so I'll ask, is there any public participation? You don't have to run, we'll wait for you.
I just wanted to congratulate you, Jenny, for, I'm sorry I didn't make it to the meeting Tuesday. And I actually was watching the meeting remotely, and I noticed that the city has been approached by T-Mobile and AT&T, and we are potentially going to be getting some increased revenue coming in for the city from that, and I just wanted to point out that last year, because American Tower wanted to give us a permanent one lump sum last year to basically buy off their contract so they didn't have to pay us any more rent. And I was against that last year, even though the mayor wanted to accept the lump sum. And I just wanted to point out that the city's possibly going to be receiving here, depending on how they negotiate that contract, potentially several $100,000 over the next 10 years, which I helped facilitate that last year when I was on council, saying, hey, let's not take, they probably knew last year that they had these other tenants coming to get on this tower.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks for that.
Oh, and I did notice, and I really liked this tonight, not a single person in this room had a mask on. I love it.
All right. Any other public participation? If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the joint regular committee meeting. Motion by Mr. McKeever.
Second.
Second by Mr. Truca. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. We're adjourned.
7:50.
Same email.
At 7:59.